Hey there, toy collector friends and Transformers fans alike. Welcome back to the channel. I'm the time-travelling toy collector, and this is Laser Optimus Prime as released through the Transformers Legacy range by Takara Tomy and Hasbro. One of the new Legacy figures that also revisits a previous generation, G2 Laser Optimus Prime, and I have to say, I've had a deluge of arrivals recently, which has sort of slowed me down in terms of getting some of these onto video. Plus, of course, there's been the issues occurring with Eagle Moss, and I'll tackle that in a very soon-to-be released video, looking at another one of their Star Trek starships. So more around Eagle Moss in that. But for the here and the now, apologies for a bit of a hiatus in videos. But I'm blasting back with a real modern uptake on a blast from the past, which is this Laser Optimus Prime. So I'm just going to start with a bit of a scope down on the artwork of the box for Laser Optimus Prime. As you can see, there's his tanker mode rather, and there's his full-on robot mode, busy launching some rockets from his shoulder-mounted cannons. As you'd expect. Beautiful artwork, as we always get with Transformers products, more or less. Some really lovely artwork, and there we have Transformers Legacy, leader class vehicle on the side. We can see that he is Laser Optimus Prime. Just while I'm looking at the box here, a key feature around Laser Optimus Prime was that he had lights that played into the whole laser feature. Those laser features do not carry forward to this iteration of the figure, and I think I'm a bit disappointed about that. I never had the original Laser Optimus Prime. That came out after I'd kind of phased out of collecting Transformers toys as toys for my own playtime. So I missed out that whole sort of the majority of the Generation 2 lines. So I had to do a little bit of reading up on and background work on finding out who exactly Laser Optimus Prime was, what his gimmicks were. And I won't lie, I was quite close to not bothering picking this guy up because it didn't resonate with me in the same way that other more more G1 accurate Optimus Primes did, because this wasn't really a core part of my childhood or my early formative stages. So for me, I had nothing that connected me to it. So seeing it in action, I thought, not so much for me. Then I saw a couple of early reviews from others online who'd got it in hand either early, however they did that, or in the United States. And I thought, actually, you know what? This figure's really interesting, so I went ahead and picked it up, and here he is. What I'm really happy to see here is that he was picked up. Let's just reframe him slightly there. He's packaged in alt mode, just like the old Transformer toys used to be. The recent waves of Transformer toys has very much been, we'll package them up in their robot mode. And I think you can get away with that to an extent, because in the days of G1, things were packaged up in the alt modes, because the alt modes were the things that looked more playable. As I mentioned before, I think a lot of the robot modes lacked articulation and lacked high levels of playability, meaning that they required far more imagination than the alt modes, which were basically toy cars, toy planes, things you could wheel around, things you could go zoom with, etc. So not so much with the toys. And if you ever look back on, and you can Google these, you can see them on YouTube, old G1 toy adverts, then it always makes me laugh to see how much playability is demonstrated through the alt modes, rather than perhaps the robot toy modes themselves, because actually you couldn't do a huge amount with them. Anyway, I digress. That's just a little point from someone who grew up with G1 toys. It's nice to see them repackaging, then their approach to packaging changing, and it now being in the alt mode. So here we have Optimus Prime in his truck range. And of course, something else that I didn't realise, because it wasn't, as I say, part of my growing up, was that Optimus had previously appeared like this. For me, when the Bayverse started and that first Transformers movie came out, the live-action Transformers movie came out, and Optimus had a truck that looked like this, I thought, oh, that's quite a departure from my classic understanding of Optimus Prime. But of course, here it is demonstrating that it's not that much of a departure really, because G2 Optimus Prime, Laser Optimus Prime, looked just like that. So, okay, that's a point to the Bayverse for some kind of robot / early toy accuracy. Now, bringing this here into a bit, I'll bring it a bit closer. I've put it on here just to make it a bit easier to look at, but we may move that slightly in a second. Toy mode it's hefty. I mean, it's really large. You know, as we see with G1 Optimus Prime, there is, you know, you got the trailer section, although albeit here it's a tanker, and you have the cab section, and they do separate, and they do actively engage as separate entities, which we shall look at very shortly. It doesn't have some of the play features that the G2 original had, which was some disc launching things from along the top of this, and of course other lights. But I can kind of forgive that, because as I say, it's easy for me to forgive something that I didn't really know anything about or ever experience firsthand, so I'm not going to judge it on stuff I have no context for. But what I will say is the detailing here is really excellent. When I get it in hand, we'll have a look at that a bit more closely. Something else that gets a bit of stick, and there's sort of kind of two camps around it, is that the trailer area lacks the authentic G2 sticker treatment. Now, I've seen some of that G2 sticker treatment, and I think the back end of the 80s, and to be fair, this was present in toys throughout the 70s and the 60s, from what I can see, was a kind of self-referential branding through some of the stickers. So, for example, way back, there was, I think it was Corgi, could be Dinky, but I think it was Corgi or Dinky, may even be Matchbox now that I've said that. There was a little sort of transit van that had a little green moulded Hulk figure from the Marvel Universe, and it stood inside the cage at the back of the truck, and on the bonnet of the truck, so on the hood of the truck, there was a sticker that emblazoned the Incredible Hulk. And it's like, who drives around in any real world or toy world with a truck that says the Incredible Hulk on it, and also has the Incredible Hulk busting out of a cage in the back? To me, I struggled, even with my sort of 4, 5, 6-year-old self. I was really struggling with that in the 70s. So probably I was younger than that, to be fair. But even then, I was struggling with that. For me, not having Optimus Prime blazoned, because again, robots in disguise, folks. Don't disguise yourself as a vehicle and then put your name on your trailer. That is not a robot in disguise. That is a robot advertising that they're in disguise. It's not the same thing, and I would have struggled with that as a child. So I'm kind of glad that I did not participate in some of the G2 stuff, because that would have annoyed me substantially. But they've opted to not do this. I understand that Toy Hacks or Repro labels or some other third-party company will probably produce, if they haven't already, some stickering that if that's what you want, you will be able to achieve it. I, however, will not be pursuing that, as for me, this is the version that I kind of really like, and I'm kind of down with. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this. As we've mentioned, it does separate very nicely. Try and keep it in the light, and it does freestand. So we have the stand that can pull down there. I'll put this together, and we can stand that very nicely over there, and it's great. And then we have the Optimus unit, which is a beautiful truck. It's a beautiful toy truck, and we have some lovely detailing on the grille. We have that lovely flame print over the hood, across the bonnet. We have translucent plastic in the windows, and so many windows, although obviously there's lots of robot kibble rammed up inside. That's not uncommon for early Transformers, so I can certainly cope with it with this modern one. The steps up to the door, I mean, the detailing here is really, really lovely. The headlamps are in there. They don't light up, but they're in there. There's a lot to take in. The horns there, a panel there that if I was a betting man would say that might be where Optimus's head is. However, is it? We have the stacks there that we had before. We've got the silver Autobot logo there. Then we have the back low loader sort of platform area, and yeah, his feet are dangling off in true Optimus Prime fashion. But you know what? I don't really think they're that bad, and it's quite innocuous as far as I'm concerned in terms of that. Looking underneath, well, there's some bits and pieces. I don't know whether you'd call that visible hip syndrome, but there's a lot going on there. But actually, it doesn't necessarily cry. There's a robot in here trying to get out. So I, for one, really, really love this design, and I've not transformed him as of this point. So anyone that's seen some of my early Instagram postings of this figure, you'll see that it only appears in truck mode, because I have, prior to this video, not transformed him. I'll be doing that momentarily, and I'll tell you exactly how effective or otherwise I think that turns out. But yeah, I think it's really, really nice. There's no Autobot symbol this side. I'm not too sure why that is, but it's not there, so there's not much I can do about that. But yeah, for me, truck, very, very nice indeed. And it's I'm really glad that I did pick it up. So there we go. Next up, the trailer section itself. So I'll just tilt up slightly for this. So much like G1 Optimus Prime and also G2 Optimus Prime, this does open up and form a bit of a base. Again, it doesn't have the play features of G2 Optimus Prime, and more on that in a second. I love, if we're looking at the detailing, the quality of the detailing here. You can see, even in the outer shot parts that you wouldn't normally see in a normal run of events, that level of detailing that occurs there. You know, we can really see that pulled out. I love the pistons and the cabling and the wiring. I love the beautiful red, blood red piping that's there, and it sells it to me really well. It really pops on that grey, so I really, really love it. And then we move to the top section, which, as I sort of alluded to before, in the original variant of this toy, it had some more additional play features. It had like a disc launcher, and thematically that's captured here, but it doesn't actually fire any discs. I'm not going to lose any sleep over that, because, as I say, I'm not losing anything I didn't have. I love that there's a railing here. You can see there's like the support railing along the top there, the grids that are along the top there, the mesh grids, fascinating little panels. You can see that there's also points for weaponizing the little ports that exist all over the place there, on the side there. There's again what look like they could be used as steps up, should that be the case. The rear, again, some beautiful detailing on the rear there. I don't know, I mean, I mentioned earlier about the lack of stickers on this section. There's a part of me that does miss the application of the stickers to the Transformer toys, just like we used to do with G.I. Joe toys, Star Wars toys and ships, and the Transformers. They always came with a sticker sheet, and increasingly that's less and less of a feature now. And I'm sure there's lots of practical reasons why that's the case, and I won't lie to you, I wasn't probably the best at applying stickers to my old toys. I had an unsteady hand and an over-eagerness that would probably lead to some ill-placed or wonky, let's be perfectly honest, sticker applications. But you know what? I had fun. I had fun doing it, and it made it uniquely mine. Whereas now we tend to get these far more minimalist stickers, but they're pre-applied, so they're either, you know, actual stickers or they're paint applications, whatever it may be, whatever approach they've used. It's there already, and I think there may be just a slight suggestion that from a engagement with the toy perspective, and again, I fully appreciate that I'm speaking from a very personal perspective, but if you have your own view, do let me know in the comments below. But I think there's an element of play that's missed when you can't actually apply some of those stickers yourself. So I've left them in the sort of bunk bed mode. So you've got the trailer section, which will be Optimus. So you've got the I can't even speak with excitement. You've got the truck section, which will become Optimus, and you've got the trailer section, which will become a base. They don't combine into a super version, but they are, you know, already I'm really excited with what we're getting to see here between these two. So I'm now going to spend a few moments off camera transforming them, and I will give you my feedback on how they transformed any second now. And here we are, Optimus Prime, Laser Optimus Prime, fully transformed up into robot mode, along with his defensive base mode, let's call it that. Now let's kick off with the robot mode, Optimus Prime. Now here he is. He's a legend class figure, and he's putting, most definitely, and I think somebody else said this, so apologies if I'm inadvertently stealing someone else's line, but he really is putting the legs into legend here, because he's a very leggy character. He has very long legs, which is great because he's a very tall leader class figure. His eyes are quite deep set in that face sculpt, so even if I come quite close, you can sort of see them in there. There, that's not so bad. You can sort of see them in there, but you know, I almost wish there was some light piping or something that would bring out the differential. But there isn't, so that's fine. We can see through that chest piece, which is again a bit of a faux chest piece, which was beautifully engineered, I will say. The matrix of leadership, and if we flip this section up, which I think is safe to do, we can see that there. It's slightly different to the other matrices we've seen in the past. I'm not going to take it out because it did fall out during transformation, so I'm not going to risk that. So I'm going to tuck that away back inside that chest unit. We can see it. It does come with like an energon sword and also an energon shield, which we'll talk about in a second, which is very much in keeping with the Laser Optimus Prime feature, although in the original feature a light in the hand would then send lights through the sword, which of course is absent from this figure, so therefore the whole laser gimmick is missing. So how we're still calling him Laser Optimus Prime is a bit of a mystery. We do also have, as you undoubtedly you know by now, these, and I really like them because this is the sort of play feature I like, these shoulder mounted cannons, missiles, which are again presented in this lovely blue transparent plastic, and do provide us with a degree of Optimus's firepower, and of course they're tucked away, they're disguised as these shoulder mounts. In terms of articulation, it's a funny one because you kind of want all of this to be able to articulate, but it can't. You do have sideways articulation in the arms there, and you can have a bit of extended by not fully clipping that in. Again, here you can bring it forwards, but you have to lift this panel up. And you do have rotation at the bicep, so you can achieve things, you know, you can achieve poses, etc. I just wish the eyes were a bit more prominent, because even with the light and zooming in, you know, although you can get a sense that they're there, it just feels a bit that they're almost not, which I'm not such a fan of. The engineering around the transformation was great, in both the base, which is very, very simple to transform, and the robot itself. It was a really fun transformation. There's, you know, let's take a look at the detailing while I'm talking about this. But yeah, it wasn't overly complicated. It was straightforward. At no point did I swear or think anything was about to break. You do have this bit of backpack on the back, but to be fair, it's not a huge amount. Very, very clean figure. And a lot of that is thanks to the super upper body engineering of rolling out chests and folding away arms. The legs pretty much form the back end of the trailer section, so there's no surprises. As with pretty much every iteration of Optimus Prime, they are the back end of the trailer. They always will look like the back end of the trailer, so not an awful lot happened or changed around there. But he has a lot of leg posability. I'm not going to walk you through all the stuff that you're going to already be familiar with and know, but from a posability point of view and a playability point of view, that wants to stay pressed in a little bit there. He is a really nice figure. Now, I would observe, and again, he's new, I've not transformed him prior to now, so please take that into consideration, but there are some joints that are really quite stiff. Okay, and not least his head, which does give you, one hopes in time, sideways mobility. It also gives you a little bit of up and down, but that's mostly due to that plate and rather than a ball joint. Arms we've talked about, hips we've kind of alluded to. The hips feel a bit loose for me. I don't know if you can see that. There's a feel that they're a bit loose. It could be my imagination. The ankle tilt is there, which is always nice, and of course some great articulation at the knees. There is a little bit here and there of hollow space. Most of it's covered up nicely, especially in the arms, linked with the transformation. And the legs do fold in to cover up some of the hollow space there. So I'm not going to fault that too much because transformation demands it. You get some nice waist articulation, which is always great when you're trying to do some posed photography and get some dynamic shots of these figures. So all in all, I really like how this figure comes out. I like the surface detailing. I like the translucent plastic. I love some of the engineering that is both innovative whilst not being super complex, that makes the figure therefore a chore to transform rather than a joy. The accessories being the sword and the shield are very, very nice. Very, very nice, very in keeping. There's just a hint again of me saying it's a bit of a shame that the laser feature isn't there to fully support and engage its own history as a figure. So I'm gonna zoom a little bit down here, pan a little bit down here, and look at the base unit. So we can see here central column. We do have that rotating. We also have an independently rotating top cannon. We have some storage for Optimus's weapons. We have a little ramp so that he can we can see that there's some mechanical support available here, not dissimilar from the Prime, as it were. And then lots of ports to have defensible pieces. There's no stickers, so on the reverse side of this section, which in terms of layout, I would think, oh, we can have some monitors, some readouts, some displays. There's nothing. So this is again where I think the absence of stickers really causes us some problems. But what we do have is an awful lot, and I'll tilt it slightly. Well, I'll take Optimus out for a second, so I can zoom in a bit more for us all. But what we do have here, and as I say, I will tilt it, because it's actually quite wide, so it takes up this whole display area, is a lot of fantastic moulded detailing. You can see all of that in there. Some really good moulded detailing that they could have avoided doing. They didn't have to go that far and give us this playability. So I, for one, am very here for that. I think it's great that they give us this extended playability for the base unit. my disappointment comes in the first instance that we don't really get anything to brighten it up. And then, and some of you will have seen this, so I'm shouting out to a fantastic reviewer called Emgo, and he did his review of Laser Optimus Prime, and he said and demonstrated how you can mix up Laser Optimus Prime with this guy. This is Cog. Cog is a weaponizer, and I've not done any sort of review or exploration of Cog yet, so this is a bit timey-wimey. But Cog is an Autobot weaponizer. I believe in the lore, in the first iteration of Fortress Maximus, there were two little vehicle things that came together to produce Cog, which was sort of one of Fortress Maximus's companion pieces. Here it's been released as a War for Cybertron character, nicely detailed. Actually, you can see the face sculpt there, and I believe it does have, I might be wrong there, I was going to say I thought it had light piping around the eyes, but I think it's just the way the visor's painted. And Cog disassembles. So some would say this is what the epitome of a parts former. He is articulated, so he has shoulder, elbow, bicep articulation. He has waist articulation, head articulation. He has knee, although some hollow spaces, so watch out for that. Knee and hip rotation, thigh rotation. It's a very, very, very agile figure, but not least because pretty much all of these sections come apart. Now, I've not talked about weaponizers before, and this isn't really my intention isn't to sort of hand over to Cog for this rest of this review, but what I am going to do is experiment a bit with Cog between now and taking some photos and posting this video to see how I can engage Cog as part of the base. So when I do my end of video photos, you'll be able to see how we can possibly brighten up and apply some different levels and playability to that base station, because I do like the base station, don't get me wrong. It just needs a bit more going on, I think, and I think they've potentially missed a bit of a trick with that. Even though we do have Optimus, who can presumably staff the base very capably himself, because it's his base, so I would hope that he could. But I am just mindful that it's a kind of, it's not great. But that blue, the red, and the grey colour schemes really lend themselves to little old Cog, who also gives us blue, red, and grey, if not silver, colour schemes as well. So you can kind of see how these are a bit of a good fit, and that's what we shall be exploring. I'll be exploring in some photos shortly, and we'll try and include those in the final edit of the video before that goes up, and you all get a chance to see it. So he's not part of the pack, he is sold separately, but on Emgo's recommendation, I'm going to try and do some playing about with that. And in fact, it was really on his recommendation that I got the Cog figure. I managed to pick it up very, very well priced online, so I'm very grateful for that shout. Yeah, I think it's a lovely companion piece, even though I know perhaps historically it's for Fortress Maximus, and one day I will do my Fortress Maximus video in all its glory, including the likes of Cog and others. But for now, here is Laser Optimus Prime and his base mode, defense base mode, and I love it. Does it have a place in your collection? Well, only really you know that. As I say, I didn't initially think it would have in mine until I saw some of the reviewers, and yeah, I had to say those reviews did make me sort of sit up and go, you know what, I think I really like where this figure's going. I think this figure has some potential. I think I can do things with this figure. I think thanks to now having Cog, I can definitely do some stuff with him too. And so we'll play with that. Because actually, that's what these guys are for. They're to play with. Yes, they're to display. Yes, they're to collect. They're to do with whatever you want, really, because they're essentially your figures. But let's not lose sight of the fact that your figure or not, you know, they do really photograph well. So I'm going to hopefully bring some of that to the end of this video, as I always try to do. So hopefully this has given you some insight into whether or not you want to add Laser Optimus Prime from the Transformers Legacy range into your collection. If you do, that's great. If you decided you don't, well, actually that's great too, because what I want you to do is get a chance to see these up close and personal and decide if this is something you want or actually something that gets a hard pass. Either is fine, it's up to you, it's your money, you spend it, you save it. That's your choice. If this has been useful, do please hit the like button either way, so that I know that it has made a bit of a difference. If you like what he looks like, if you think using a weaponizer is a good idea, let me know in the comments. If you think there's another figure that engages as well or better with the base mode, let me know that too, and I'll see if I have it, or I can get it, I can add it into sort of the dioramas we can possibly create for future photo shoots. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for sticking with me for the last 25 minutes or so. This, as I say, has been Laser Optimus Prime from the Legacy range. You have been a fantastic audience, and I, as ever, have been the time-travelling toy collector. All it remains for me to say is take care. I look forward to seeing you in a future video, and until then, remember that a thing of beauty really is a toy forever. So take care, and remember, one, to roll out.